There are moments that redefine the landscape of your life, etching themselves into your soul like a tattoo you never wanted. For me, that moment arrived on a crisp Saturday in June, during my daughter's commencement ceremony. My name is Maria Gonzalez. I'm 52 years old, a woman who's spent her life weaving dreams from threads of hardship. This is the tale I buried deep inside for over a year, until I realized that burying pain only lets it fester. Silence, I've learned, demands a toll far steeper than words ever could. That morning, I rose with the dawn, the air in my modest kitchen heavy with the scent of fresh tortillas and chorizo. I brewed coffee strong enough to chase away the nerves, adding a dash of vanilla like I did for every milestone. I slipped into the emerald green dress I'd splurged on 6 months prior, simple knee-length, with a delicate lace collar I'd sewn myself from remnants of my mother's old shawl. It wasn't designer, but it hugged my curves with quiet dignity. I pinned a gold locket around my neck, the one containing a faded photo of my daughter as a toddler. I wanted to shine for her. I wanted Alina to see me and feel the weight of my love. But love, as I would soon discover, can be a fragile shield against the arrows of shame. The university campus buzzed with anticipation when we arrived. Banners fluttered in the breeze, families clustered like colorful bouquets, and the air hummed with cheers and camera clicks. I scanned the sea of black caps and gowns until I spotted Alina near the stage, fiddling with her tassel. Her dark hair cascaded beneath the cap, and her smile, God, that smile, lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. I hurried over, my heart pounding with a mix of pride and that inexplicable maternal worry. "Alina, Mija, we're here," I called, waving as I approached. She turned, and for a split second her expression faltered. It was subtle, like a shadow crossing her face, but I caught it. "Mom! Hey, can we talk for a sec?" My stomach twisted. "Of course, sweetheart, what's going on?" She glanced over her shoulder toward where her fiancé, Marcus, stood with his mother, Mrs. Victoria Langford. Victoria was the epitome of polished elegance. Tall, with silver-streaked hair and a perfect chignon, draped in a tailored cream suit that screamed old money. Pearls gleamed at her throat, and her posture was that of someone who'd never known a day of scraping by. Alina took a deep breath, her eyes avoiding mine. "Mom, Marcus, and we've decided that Victoria should walk with me during the procession." The world tilted. "What? Why?" "It's just, she helped with the last year's tuition when things got tight, and Marcus thinks it's only fair. She's been like a mentor, you know." "And me, Alina, what about me?" My voice cracked, but I held it together. She shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, please don't make this harder. You know how it is. You embarrass me sometimes." Those words landed like a slap, sharp and stinging. "Embarrass you? After everything?" "Look at you," she whispered, gesturing vaguely. "That dress, it's sweet, but it's so outdated. Victoria looks like she belongs here. I don't want my friends whispering about where I come from. Please understand." I didn't respond. I couldn't. The gold locket suddenly felt heavy, a reminder of promises long faded. Alina turned away, linking arms with Victoria, who shot me a pitying glance that cut deeper than any knife. I watched from the sidelines as my daughter strode toward the stage, applause thundering around me like mocking laughter. The scar formed then, invisible but raw. Before the fracture, our life was a tapestry of small joys and quiet triumphs. Alina arrived on a stormy August night in our cramped apartment in East Los Angeles, the kind of place where the walls echoed with neighbors' arguments and the scent of street tacos wafted through open windows. I was 24, a waitress with dreams deferred, when her father vanished like smoke. He was a musician, full of charisma and empty promises. "I'm not cut out for this," he'd said, packing his guitar and leaving me with a swelling belly and a broken heart. I sent him photos, Alina's first steps, her gap-toothed grin, but they went unanswered. So it was just us, me against the world for her. Mornings were our ritual. I'd wake her with kisses, scrambling eggs with onions and tomatoes while she rubbed sleep from her eyes. Our tiny table overlooked a patch of concrete we called our yard, where I'd planted herbs in cracked pots. "Mama, one day I'll take you to the beach house," she'd declare, her little hands sticky with jam. "With waves and everything." "I don't need beaches, me Ammer," I'd reply, braiding her hair. "You are my ocean." I worked relentlessly. Days at the diner, nights cleaning hotel rooms, weekends tutoring kids in Spanish. Every tip, every overtime hour funneled into her future. I skipped meals so she could have books, mended her clothes so she'd look sharp for school. We couldn't afford the elite academies, but I got her into a solid charter school where her sharp mind flourished. Teachers raved. Mrs. Gonzalez, Alina's a star. Scholarships await. Weekends were sacred. We'd ride the bus to Griffith Park, picnic with empanadas I'd made from scratch, and hike trails where she'd spin tailies of becoming a doctor, curring the world. And you'll come live with me in my big house, Mama. No more scrubbing floors. Her words fueled my fire. When she turned 13, I surprised her with a second-hand laptop I'd refurbished, trading favors with a neighbor tech whiz. She hugged me so tight, tears in her eyes. You're the best, Mama. I love you forever. Back then, she saw me not as a burden, but as her hero. That changed when college beckoned. I juggled 3 jobs to cover her tuition at UCLA, my body aching from exhaustion, but her late-night study sessions made it worthwhile. Until Marcus entered the picture. He was from Beverly Hills stock, father a tech executive, mother a socialite who chaired galas for the elite. Their home was a sprawling mansion with marble floors and ocean views. Alina met him in a sociology class, and soon, weekends at my place turned into visits to theirs. At first, I encouraged it. Expand your horizons, Mija. But the shift was insidious. It started small. Mom, when you visit campus, maybe don't wear those old sandals, she'd say, half joking. I laughed it off but tucked them away along with a sliver of my self-worth. Cracks widened. She skipped our traditional Dia de los Muertos altar building, citing a study group at Marcus's. When I pressed, she snapped, It's not a big deal, Mom. Their family does holidays differently, more refined. One evening, I baked her favorite tres leches cake and drove to her dorm unannounced. She opened the door, eyes widening in alarm. Mom, now's not great. Marcus's parents are here. I brought cake. Enough for all, I beamed, holding up the tin. She hesitated. They just ate, and honestly, it's a bit homemade looking. Let's catch up later. The door closed softly, but it echoed like a slam. I drove home in silence, the cake uneaten on the passenger seat, tears blurring the freeway lights. Visits dwindled. When she came over, she'd fidget, critiquing my cluttered shelves or the faded curtains. Mom, this place is so cozy, but maybe update it. Always glancing at her phone, always rushing back to Marcus. Then came the engagement dinner. She invited me to a swanky restaurant downtown, crystal chandeliers, valet parking. I wore my best, a floral blouse and skirt, the gold locket polished. At the table, Victoria eyed me coolly. Maria, darling, Alina speaks so fondly of you. The conversation swirled around yacht clubs, vineyard tour, stock portfolios, worlds alien to me. When Marcus's father asked my occupation, I said proudly, I manage a cleaning service now, after years in hospitality, and I volunteer at the community center. A polite chuckle from Victoria. How resilient. Single parenting is quite the challenge, isn't it? Alina said nothing, sipping her wine. No defense, no solidarity. As we parted, she pulled me aside. Mom, next time maybe something more chic, like what Victoria wears. I froze, the night air chilling my skin. Chic. Alina, this is who I am. She sighed. I know, but impressions matter for our future. That hour didn't include me. The fissures had become chasms. Graduation day shattered it all. After her words in the auditorium, I sat numb in the audience, clapping mechanically as names were called. When Alina crossed the stage with Victoria at her side, the crowd's roar drowned my silent sobs. Photos flashed, happy families immortalized, while I lingered in the shadows. Months blurred into isolation. Alina called sporadically, invitations laced with conditions. Come to brunch, but dress up. I declined, nursing my wound in solitude. Work became my refuge, the community center my family. I volunteered more, teaching ESL classes, finding purpose in others' stories of struggle and triumph. One rainy November evening, a knock echoed through my apartment. Alina stood there, soaked, eyes red-rimmed. Mom, can I come in? I stepped aside, wordless. She collapsed on the couch, the one I'd reupholstered myself. I messed up, big time. Marcus had left her for someone more aligned with his world, as Victoria put it. The wedding plans dissolved, exposing the superficiality she'd chased. I was so blind, she whispered. Chasing their approval, I lost sight of yours, of us. You gave me everything, and I threw it away because I was ashamed. Ashamed of the woman who built me. Tears flowed, hers, mine. I held her, the gold locket pressing between us. Mija, pride is a double-edged sword. It can lift you or cut you deep. We talked through the night, unraveling the knots. She apologized for the bag critique, the uninvited visits, the graduation betrayal. I shared my pain, the invisible scar that ached with every reminder. Healing wasn't instant. Alina moved back temporarily, helping with chores, cooking side by side. We revisited Griffith Park, sharing empanadas under the trees. She pursued her medical career on her terms, volunteering at clinics in underserved neighborhoods, echoing my roots. Now, years later, Alina has her own practice, a modest home where I have a room waiting. She walks tall, not in borrowed elegance, but in the strength I instilled. The scar remains, a reminder that love endures betrayal, that silence breaks under truth's weight. And on rainy days, when it aches, I brew coffee with vanilla, inhale the scent of celebration, and remember. We carry our stories, but they don't have to define us. Sometimes they set us free. Shadows of sacrifice. In the bustling streets of Mumbai, where the humid air carried the scent of street food and exhaust fumes, lived a woman named Priya Sharma. She was a widow in her late 40s, her hands calloused from years of scrubbing floors and washing dishes in the homes of the wealthy. Priya had raised her daughter, Annika, alone after her husband died in a construction accident when Annika was just 5. Every rupee she earned went toward Annika's education, her dreams of a better life. Priya wore simple cotton saris, faded from countless washes, and her hair was always tied in a practical bun. She spoke softly, with a regional accent that betrayed her rural roots, but her eyes held the fire of unwavering determination. Annika was Priya's world. From the moment she could walk, Annika showed promise, top of her class, always curious, always striving. Priya worked double shifts at a cleaning agency to send her to a decent school, then a prestigious college for business studies. "One day, Beta, you'll be in a big office making decisions," Priya would say, smiling through her exhaustion. Annika would hug her tightly. "I will, Ma, and I'll take you with me." But as Annika grew older, things began to shift. In college, she met Rohan Patel, a charming young man from an affluent family. The Patels owned a chain of luxury hotels across India, and Rohan was studying hotel management, poised to inherit the empire. He was polished, drove a sleek car, and spoke English with a flawless accent. Annika fell hard for him, and soon they were inseparable. The first crack appeared during a family dinner at the Patels' sprawling villa in Bandra. Priya arrived in her best sari, a plain blue one with a modest border, carrying a box of homemade laddus. She had taken the local train, her feet aching from the long walk. The villa was a palace, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, servants in uniforms. Mrs. Leela Patel, Rohan's mother, greeted her with a polite but distant smile. "Namaste, Priyajai. How kind of you to come." The dinner was awkward. Priya tried to make conversation, sharing stories of Annika's childhood in their tiny one-room flat in the slums of Dharavi. But the Patels exchanged glances. Rohan laughed nervously. "Mom, maybe not now," Annika whispered, her cheeks flushing. Later, as they left, Annika pulled Priya aside. "Ma, why did you have to talk about the old days? It makes things uncomfortable. And your sari, it's so old-fashioned. People might judge." Priya felt a sting but swallowed it. "I'm sorry, Beta. I just wanted them to know how far you've come." That night on the crowded train home, Priya buried her face in her pallu and wept silently. The crack in her heart widened. She had trusted Annika with her whole life, poured everything into her. But now, disappointment crept in like monsoon rain. Had she ever been let down by someone she loved? Yes, her husband had promised forever, but death took him. This felt worse, betrayal by choice. Being a mother taught Priya to endure, to bite her tongue when she wanted to shout, to nod when her spirit screamed. She couldn't lose Annika, her only light. So she adapted, made herself smaller, faded into the background. After that dinner, Priya resolved to change. Not for herself, but to make Annika proud again. She saved for months, skipping meals to afford a new outfit. She visited a boutique in the mall, a place she'd never dreamed of entering. The salwar kameez she chose was modern, silk blend, embroidered subtly in a deep emerald green. It hugged her figure more than her usual loose attire. In the mirror, she looked transformed but alien. "You look sophisticated, madam," the salesgirl said. Priya didn't feel sophisticated. She felt like an imposter. She bought matching sandals that pinched her toes and a faux leather handbag that felt too flashy. The next occasion was Annika's college awards ceremony, where she was being honored for her internship excellence. Annika had mentioned it casually, giving Priya the date. Priya arrived early, dressed in her new ensemble, even applying a touch of kajal and lipstick from a cheap tube. The auditorium buzzed with well-dressed parents. She spotted Annika in the front row with Rohan, Mrs. Leela, and Mr. Vikram Patel. "Beta," Priya waved, smiling broadly. Annika turned, her eyes widening, not in joy but in dismay. "Ma, what are you wearing, and why so early?" Rohan shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Leela interjected smoothly. "Priyajai, these seats are reserved for immediate family sponsors. The college allocated only 4 per student, and since we've supported Annika's fees this semester." Priya's world tilted. "But I'm her mother." Annika avoided her gaze. "Ma, please don't cause a scene. You can watch from the balcony, they have live screens." The words sliced deep. Priya nodded, forcing a smile, and retreated to the back, standing among strangers. She watched Annika receive her award on a pixelated screen, hugging Rohan and posing with the Patels. In her new clothes, Priya felt more invisible than ever. That evening, back in her cramped flat, she stripped off the salwar, the sandals, the bag, shoving them into a dusty corner. She donned her old sari, the one Annika called outdated, and sipped chai at the rickety table, wondering when she had ceased to be enough. Weeks blurred into silence. Annika's calls dwindled. Priya didn't push, fearing she'd seem needy. Then came an invitation, embossed on ivory cardstock, announcing Annika Sharma and Rohan Patel's engagement party. Priya wept with mixed emotions, joy that Annika remembered her, sorrow at the formality. As she prepared this story in her mind, Priya wondered about her listeners. Where are you from? Delhi's chaos, Bangalore's tech hubs, Kolkata's heritage. Share your city, remind me I'm not alone. Secrets fester like untreated wounds. Priya sensed something hidden in Annika's evasive texts, the avoided calls. She ignored it, clinging to hope. For the engagement, Priya scrimped again, working overtime mopping corporate offices, her back aching. She bought a gift, a delicate gold bracelet, engraved with "To Annika with eternal love, Ma." It cost nearly all her savings, but she imagined Annika's delight. A week before, Priya surprised Annika at her new apartment, paid for by the Patels, with fresh jalbis, Annika's childhood favorite. Knocking, she heard laughter inside. Annika opened the door, face paling. "Ma, now!" Inside sat Rohan, Mrs. Leela, and friends, poring over wedding planners and guest lists. "Hello," Priya said shyly. Mrs. Leela's smile was tight. "What a surprise." Annika hastily shuffled papers. "We're planning the engagement details." Priya offered help, but Annika snapped. "It's handled, Ma." The air thickened. Priya left the jalbis and departed, but overheard Mrs. Leela. "Have you told her?" Annika, "Not yet, at the party." The words haunted Priya. She called Annika repeatedly. Responses were curt. "Busy, Ma. See you at the engagement." Flipping through a discarded glossy magazine at work, Priya froze. A spread on Mumbai's elite. Annika at a charity gala, radiant in a designer lehenga, arm in arm with Rohan. The Patels beamed beside them. Caption: Annika Sharma, rising star in hospitality, with fiancé Rohan Patel and the Patel family at the annual Elite Hearts Gala. Mrs. Leela Patel, philanthropist extraordinaire, praised for mentoring Annika's career and funding her advanced courses. Priya's breath caught. Annika hadn't mentioned the gala, the mentorship, the funding. The article lauded the Patels as Annika's pillar of support. Not Priya, who had sacrificed everything. That night, staring at the photo, Priya replayed the signs, the silences, the dismissals. Engagement day dawned. Priya dressed in a simple yet neat sari, pinning her late mother's brooch. She clutched the bracelet like a talisman. The venue was a lavish hotel ballroom, glittering with lights and flowers. Families mingled. Priya found Annika adjusting her dupatta, nervous but glowing. "Beta, you look beautiful." Annika's eyes flickered. "Ma, we need to talk." Priya's stomach nodded. "What's wrong?" Annika sighed. "Rohan and I decided. Mrs. Leela will stand with us for the ring exchange. She's sponsored so much, the venue, my courses. It feels right." Priya reeled. "But I'm your mother." Annika looked away. "Ma, you embarrass me sometimes. Your clothes, your accent. Mrs. Leela fits better. People will think." The words shattered Priya. Annika walked away, linking arms with Mrs. Leela. Rohan shot a sympathetic glance but said nothing. Priya stood frozen as the ceremony unfolded. An older guest noticed. "Are you okay?" Priya nodded numbly. "I'm Annika's mother." The MC praised Annika's achievements, highlighting her honors in business studies and collaborations with the Patel's Foundation. "Thanks to Mrs. Leela's guidance, Annika shines today." Applause thundered. Mrs. Leela waved graciously. Annika beamed at her. Priya's heart fractured. Annika had rewritten her story, erasing Priya's role. No mention of the widow who toiled endlessly. In the midst of pain, Priya recalled a memory, Annika at 8 on a rare outing to Marine Drive. Eating Belpuri, Annika said, "Ma, when I'm big, I'll be rich and buy you a Seaview flat." Priya laughed. "I just need you, Beta." Annika hugged her. "I love you always." When had that love faded? Priya slipped out early, the bracelet untouched in her purse. Back home, she sat in darkness, tea cooling untouched. She had swallowed pride too long. Perhaps it was time to reclaim her voice, to remind Annika of roots that couldn't be uprooted. But for now, the silence echoed. Priya wondered if others had felt this betrayal. Share your stories, heal with me. In the end, mothers learn resilience, but even stone hearts can crack. Once upon a time in the bustling city of Evergreen, where the skyline kissed the clouds and the streets hummed with the rhythm of ambition, lived a woman named Alina Vasquez. Alina was a single mother in her late 40s, with dark hair streaked with silver from years of worry and work, and eyes that held the depth of oceans, full of love, sacrifice, and unspoken pain. She had immigrated from a small village in Mexico 2 decades ago, chasing dreams not for herself, but for her only child, her son Marco. Marco was now 22, a handsome young man with sharp features inherited from his late father, and a mind sharpened by the best education Alina could afford. He was graduating from Evergreen University with a degree in engineering, a field that promised a future brighter than the fluorescent lights under which Alina had scrubbed floors for years. But as the graduation day approached, Alina felt a familiar knot in her stomach, a mix of pride and dread. The story of Alina and Marco began long before this day. When Marco was just a baby, Alina's husband, Javier, died in a construction accident, leaving her alone in a foreign land with no family, no savings, and a child to raise. She took any job she could find, waitressing at greasy diners during the day, cleaning office buildings at night, tutoring neighborhood kids in Spanish and math on weekends. Every penny went toward Marco's future. Private tutors when he struggled in school, soccer cleats for his team, books for his insatiable curiosity. Alina skipped meals so he could have seconds, wore threadbare clothes so he could dress like his classmates, and pushed aside her own dreams of becoming a nurse to ensure he never felt the sting of poverty. Marco grew up knowing his mother's sacrifices, but as he entered his teens, resentment crept in like ivy on a wall. He saw his friends' parents, doctors, lawyers, business owners, who hosted barbecues in sprawling backyards and drove shiny SUVs. Alina's world was different. A cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the city's outskirts, where the walls were thin and the elevator always broke. She spoke with a thick accent, her English peppered with Spanish idioms, and her hugs were too tight, her questions too probing. "Mijo, did you eat? Are you happy? Remember, I do this all for you," she'd say, her voice laced with exhaustion and love. By college, Marco had distanced himself. He rarely brought friends home, inventing excuses about his busy mom. Instead, he gravitated toward the affluent crowd, especially his girlfriend Sophia and her family, the Harringtons. Sophia's father, Mr. Reginald Harrington, was a tech mogul, and her mother, Mrs. Lydia Harrington, was a socialite with perfectly coiffed hair and a wardrobe from designer boutiques. They lived in a mansion on the hills, with a pool and a home theater. To Marco, they represented success, ease, and freedom from the guilt that Alina's sacrifices imposed. When Marco confided in Sophia about his financial struggles in his final year, tuition hikes and unexpected fees, the Harringtons stepped in. They paid for his last 2 semesters, books, and even a new laptop. In return, Marco spent holidays with them, attended their galas, and slowly, unwittingly, let Mrs. Harrington fill the maternal role he found lacking in Alina. "You're like the son we never had," Mrs. Harrington would say, beaming as she adjusted his tie. Marco basked in it, feeling valued not for what he owed, but for who he could become. Alina knew something was amiss. Marco's calls grew infrequent, his visits rare. When she asked about graduation, he mumbled, "It's fine, Mom, you don't have to come if you're busy." But Alina wouldn't miss it. She saved for months to buy a simple navy dress, nothing fancy but clean and pressed, and a silver bracelet engraved with "To Marco, my eternal pride, Mom." She imagined giving it to him after the ceremony, a symbol of her unwavering support. The graduation day dawned bright and clear, the university's grand auditorium filled with families in their Sunday best. Alina arrived early, slipping into a seat at the back, her heart pounding. She watched as graduates filed in, robes swirling like waves. The ceremony began with speeches about perseverance and future horizons. Then, the calling of names in alphabetical order. Alina held her breath as Marco Vasquez echoed through the speakers. Claps erupted. Marco strode onto the stage, confident and tall. But he wasn't alone. At his side, arm linked with his, was Mrs. Lydia Harrington, her diamond earrings sparkling under the lights, smiling as if she had birthed him herself. Marco shook the dean's hand, received his diploma, posed for photos, alone, with the dean, with Mrs. Harrington. Alina's hands trembled as she snapped a fuzzy photo from afar, her only memento. Tears pricked her eyes, but she swallowed them. Marco descended the stage, hugging Sophia, Mr. Harrington, and Mrs. Harrington. He didn't scan the crowd for Alina. She felt invisible, a ghost in her own son's life. But then the dean returned to the podium. "Before we conclude," he announced, "we have a special award. Each year, we honor the pillar of perseverance, an individual whose dedication has shaped a student's journey. This year, it goes to someone extraordinary." Alina's pulse slowed. The dean continued. "This person labored for over 2 decades, juggling multiple jobs, cleaning, tutoring, waitressing, to fund her son's education from kindergarten through college. Her sacrifices embody the spirit of unconditional love. Please join me in applauding Mrs. Alina Vasquez." The auditorium froze for Alina. Applause thundered as heads turned, searching for her. She rose shakily, walking the aisle under a sea of eyes. Marco's face drained of color, his eyes wide with shock. Sophia looked bewildered, whispering to him. Mrs. Harrington's expression hardened into a mask of fury, her lips pursed. On stage, the dean shook Alina's hand. "Mrs. Vasquez, your contributions, from scholarships funded by your overtime to the emotional support in his records, are inspiring." He presented a gleaming trophy, engraved with her name. The crowd cheered louder longer. Alina glanced at Marco. His head was bowed, fists balled, shame etched on his features. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Alina, not Mrs. Harrington, was the true pillar. Descending the stage, Alina passed the group. Mrs. Harrington hissed under her breath. "How desperate, stealing the spotlight like that." Alina ignored her, returning to her seat as the ceremony wrapped up. Families mingled afterward, but Alina lingered, hoping Marco would seek her out. He didn't. She watched him leave with the Harringtons, Mrs. Harrington gesturing animatedly, Marco nodding silently. Outside, amid celebrations, balloons, laughter, photos, Alina spotted Marco in a courtyard circle with friends and Sophia's family. She approached, the trophy heavy under her arm. Silence fell as she neared. "Marco, Mijo. We need to talk." He glanced at Sophia, who nodded awkwardly. They stepped aside to a bench beneath blooming cherry trees. Alina waited, but Marco stayed silent, so she spoke. "Why, Marco? Why push me away? Why let her take my place?" He sighed, avoiding her eyes. "Mom, don't start a scene." A scene. This is our life. You said I embarrass you. Let another woman parade as your mother. Mom, you're always so overwhelming, clingy, reminding me of every sacrifice, making me feel like I owe you everything. I never meant to guilt you. I gave you my life because I love you. That's the problem. I can't breathe under that weight. I need my own path. And Mrs. Harrington, she doesn't weigh you down. She's different, treats me like an equal, not a kid. No constant mejo this, mejo that in front of everyone. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing. The word sliced deep. What's embarrassing is scrubbing toilets for your tuition, skipping sleep for your books, while she pays 1 year and gets the glory. I always found a way, Marco. Why didn't you ask me? I didn't want more sacrifices from you. It was enough. I accepted their help, better to owe them than drown in guilt with you. The words shattered Alina. He checked his phone. Mom, we're heading to dinner with Sophia's family. Reservations. And me. A pause. You're not invited, it's family tonight. Family, the Harringtons were family now. Marco kissed her cheek, brief, obligatory. I'll call tomorrow. He walked away, joining them in a luxury sedan that sped off. Alina stood alone, trophy in hand, bracelet untouched in her purse. Tears fell as she gazed at the engraving. To Marco, with all my pride, Mom. In that moment, realization dawned. Marco didn't need her, and worse, didn't want her. But she wouldn't beg. That night, back in her dim apartment, Alina placed the trophy and bracelet on the table, symbols of giving and rejection. She sat in her worn armchair where she'd planned every hardship. Clarity emerged. She'd mistaken love for erasure, motherhood for martyrdom. She taught Marco her life was worthless without him, so when he flew, she plummeted. Rummaging in her closet, she found a dusty box, old photos of her as a young nurse's aide in Mexico, her nursing certificate, letters from patients she'd helped. Before Marco, she'd dreamed of healing, of independence. She'd paused it for him, becoming just Mom, then the embarrassing one. Sleepless, she pondered. When did she stop dreaming? At dawn, resolve set in. No calls to Marco, no pleas, she'd reclaim herself. Days blurred. Marco didn't reach out, neither did she. It stung, but liberated. She enrolled in an online nursing refresher course, free through community programs, aiming for certification and a hospital job. Excitement bubbled, hers alone. Harder still, she returned the bracelet. The jeweler, sympathetic, refunded half $200. With it, she bought a stethoscope, scrubs, and comfortable sneakers. In the mirror, she saw not a discarded mother, but Alina Vasquez, survivor, dreamer, whole. 3 weeks passed in silence. Then a text. Mom, can we meet? Need to talk. Her heart raced, but she replied steadily. Busy this week. Next Sunday. He agreed quickly. Okay. Sunday came. They met at a park cafe. Marco looked weary, Sophia absent. Mom, I'm sorry, the award. It opened my eyes. I was wrong to hide you, to let them take credit. Alina sipped coffee, calm. It's not just the ceremony, Marco. It's years of pushing me aside. I know, the Harringtons. They made life easy, no strings. But your love felt like chains. Love isn't chains. But I see now, I chained myself too. I lived only for you, forgetting me. He nodded, tears welling. I miss you, Mom. Can we start over? She smiled softly. Yes, but differently. I'm going back to nursing, building my life, you build yours. We'll meet as equals, not debtor and savior. Marco hugged her, genuine this time. I'm proud of you, Mom. As they parted, Alina walked home lighter. She'd lost illusions but gained herself. Marco visited more, their bond mending, not perfect but real. Alina graduated her course, landed a job at a clinic, healing others while healing herself. In Evergreen, under the same sky, Alina thrived, not just as a mother but as a woman reborn. And Marco learned that true love lifts, never burdens. The end came not in silence, but in shared stories, laughter, and mutual pride. Once upon a time in the bustling city of Seattle, there lived a man named Elias Thompson. He was a widower in his late 50s, with salt and pepper hair that spoke of years spent under the relentless grind of life. Elias had dedicated his entire adult existence to his only child, his daughter Sophia. She was the light of his world, a bright, ambitious young woman who had just graduated from one of the top universities in the country. But to understand their story, we must go back to where it all began. Elias had married young to a woman named Clara, whom he met during his days as a mechanic in a small auto shop. Clara was a dreamer, an artist who painted vibrant landscapes that captured the essence of the Pacific Northwest. They had Sophia when Elias was just 25, and life seemed full of promise. But tragedy struck when Sophia was only 8. Clara was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and despite the endless hospital visits, chemotherapy sessions, and Elia's second and third jobs to cover the bills, she passed away after a grueling 2-year battle. Elias was left alone to raise Sophia, his heart shattered but his resolve unbreakable. From that day forward, Elias poured every ounce of himself into his daughter. He quit his mechanic job for a more stable position as a night shift custodian at a corporate office building downtown. The pay was meager, but it allowed him flexibility during the day to attend Sophia's school events, help with homework, and drive her to extracurricular activities. He skipped vacations, wore the same worn-out clothes for years, and saved every penny for her future. Sophia excelled straight A's, captain of the debate team, scholarships pouring in. Elias beamed with pride at her high school graduation, where she gave a speech thanking him profusely. "Dad, you're my hero," she had said, and the audience had clapped as tears streamed down his face. But as Sophia entered college, things began to shift. She met new people, including a wealthy boyfriend named Alex from a prominent family. Alex's parents owned a chain of upscale restaurants, and they took Sophia under their wing, funding her study abroad program in Europe and introducing her to a world of luxury Elias could never provide. Sophia's calls home became less frequent. Visits during holidays turned into quick lunches where she seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly. Elias told himself it was just the natural progression of life. Kids grow up and spread their wings. The breaking point came on Sophia's college graduation day. Elias had taken the day off, dressed in his best suit, the one he bought secondhand for her high school prom, and driven 2 hours to the campus. He sat in the audience, his heart swelling as Sophia walked across the stage, diploma in hand. After the ceremony, he searched for her in the crowd, eager to hug her and tell her how proud he was. Finally, he spotted her surrounded by Alex, his parents, and a group of friends. He approached, smiling broadly. "Sophia, congratulations, sweetheart," he exclaimed, arms open for an embrace. She turned, her expression flickering with something he couldn't quite place, embarrassment. "Oh, hi, Dad," she said coolly, giving him a quick, one-armed hug. "Thanks for coming." Alex's mother, Mrs. Harrington, a woman dripping in pearls and designer clothes, extended a manicured hand. "You must be Elias. We've heard so much about you." Her tone was polite but laced with condescension. The group chatted awkwardly for a moment before Sophia said, "Dad, we're heading to the Harringtons' estate for a celebration dinner. It's kind of a private thing, just family and close friends." Elias felt his stomach drop. "Oh, I see. Well, maybe I could join for a bit. I drove all this way." Sophia shifted uncomfortably. "It's not really. I mean, it's their event. I'll call you later, okay? Love you." And with that, she turned away, linking arms with Alex as the group walked off, laughing. Elias stood there, alone in the sea of joyful families, feeling like a ghost. He drove home in silence, the weight of 20 years of sacrifice crushing him. That night, he cried for the first time since Clara's funeral, not out of anger, but out of a deep, aching hurt. Had he been nothing more than a stepping stone, a burden she was eager to shed now that she had better options? Days turned into weeks. Sophia texted sporadically, "Busy with job interviews," or "Miss you, Dad," but no calls, no visits. Elias went through the motions at work, mopping floors and emptying trash bins, his mind replaying that graduation scene over and over. One evening, as he sat in his small apartment staring at old photo albums, a flyer caught his eye. It was for an online certification program in automotive engineering, something he'd always loved but set aside for his family. "Why not?" he muttered to himself. For the first time in decades, he signed up for something just for him. The course was challenging, but Elias dove in with fervor. He spent his off hours studying blueprints, learning about modern electric vehicles, and even tinkering with a beat-up old car in his garage. It reignited a spark he thought had died with Clara. Sophia texted him one day, "Hey Dad, what's up? Been ages." He replied honestly, "Busy with a course, talk later." Her response was a thumbs-up emoji. No questions. And strangely, Elias didn't feel the usual pang of guilt for not elaborating. Months passed. Elias completed the certification with flying colors and landed a part-time job as an instructor at a local community college's vocational program. He quit his custodian gig, trading night shifts for days filled with teaching eager students about engines and mechanics. His apartment, once a shrine to Sophia's achievements, now held his own diplomas and tools. He even started dating again, a kind woman named Linda from his class, who shared his love for classic cars. Then came the message from Sophia, "Dad, can we meet? I need to talk." They agreed on a small diner near his apartment. Elias arrived on time, but Sophia was late, rushing in with apologies about traffic. She looked different, tired, her usual polish slightly faded. They ordered coffee. The silence was thick. "How have you been, Dad?" she asked finally. "Good, busy," he replied, echoing her old texts. She nodded. "You mentioned a course. What is it?" "Automotive engineering certification. I'm teaching now at the community college, going back to what I loved before, everything." Sophia's eyes widened. "Teaching, but your job, the cleaning." "Quit it. I don't want to scrub toilets forever. I want to build things, teach others. Be Elias again, not just your dad." She stared at him, as if seeing him anew. "I didn't know you wanted that." "I didn't either, until I realized I had to." Another pause, then softly, "Dad, I wanted to apologize." He waited, his heart guarded. "For graduation day, what I said or didn't say. It was wrong. I was selfish, cruel, I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry because it hurt me, or because it backfired on you?" Elias asked, his voice steady. She looked down at her coffee. "Both, honestly." "What changed, Sophia? Why now?" She took a deep breath. "Alex and we broke up. After graduation, his family started pressuring me. They wanted me to work in their business, basically for free, as repayment for all they'd done. When I said no, that I wanted my own career, Mrs. Harrington called me ungrateful, said after investing in me, this was how I repaid them." Her voice cracked. "And then my friend Mia, she saw how I treated you that day. We fought about it. She said I was becoming someone she didn't recognize, someone who discarded people who truly cared." Elias listened, the pieces falling into place. "That's when it hit me," Sophia continued, tears welling. "You never asked for anything back. No conditions, no strings, you just loved me. And I treated it like it was embarrassing, like you were holding me back." Elias felt a thaw in his chest, but the scars remained. "I accept your apology, Sophia, but understand this. I can't live waiting for your approval anymore. I can't be the dad who's always on standby, sacrificing everything. It's not healthy for either of us." "I know," she whispered. "I love you, Dad. I want to make it right." "Love isn't words, it's actions. Show me." They sat in a quieter silence, the diner's hum filling the gaps. Sophia wiped her eyes. "Can we try again, build something new?" "Slowly," he said. "No rush." She nodded. Elias paid the bill, standing to leave. "I have a class to prep for. Can I call you soon?" "Yes, but if I don't pick up, it's because I'm living my life, not ignoring you." She smiled through tears. "I get it. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, kid." As Elias walked out into the rainy Seattle afternoon, he felt a weight lift. The sun peeked through the clouds, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel hollow. He had chosen himself, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Justice, he realized, wasn't about payback. It was about freedom, about thriving beyond the pain. 6 months later, Elias' life had transformed. He was promoted to full-time instructor at the college, mentoring students from all walks of life. One evening, he hosted a workshop on hybrid engines, and to his surprise, Sophia showed up unannounced. She sat in the back, watching him teach with passion. Afterward, they grabbed dinner, not at a fancy place, but at a food truck park where they laughed over tacos. Sophia had started her own path too, a job at a nonprofit, advocating for affordable education. No more Harrington strings. Their relationship mended gradually, weekly calls, occasional visits, no expectations. Elias introduced her to Linda, and Sophia hugged her warmly. "I'm glad Dad has someone," she said sincerely. One day, as Elias stood in his classroom, looking at the plaque with his name on it, "Professor Elias Thompson," he smiled. He had loved fiercely, sacrificed deeply, but now he loved himself too. Life's balance wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, like the hum of a well-tuned engine. And in that, he found his true justice, a life lived fully on his own terms. It was a crisp autumn morning in Chicago, the kind where the wind off Lake Michigan carries a bite that reminds you winter is lurking just around the corner. I remember it vividly because that's the day I decided to finally share my story. Not for pity, not for validation, but because holding it inside had become too heavy a burden. My name is Maria Gonzalez, and for most of my life, I've been defined by one role above all: mother. But as you'll see, that role nearly destroyed me before it set me free. I came to the United States from Mexico when I was just 18, pregnant and alone after my boyfriend abandoned me. My parents had passed away young, and I had no family to lean on. I crossed the border with nothing but a small bag of clothes and a fierce determination to give my child a better life. That child was my son, Carlos. From the moment he was born in a crowded hospital ward, he became my world. I worked 3 jobs: cleaning offices at night, waitressing during the day, and sewing alterations on weekends, to keep a roof over our heads in a tiny one-bedroom apartment in Pilsen, the Latino neighborhood where we blended in with the murals and the smell of street tacos. Carlos was a bright kid, always curious, always asking questions. "Mama, why do stars shine?" he'd say, pointing at the sky from our fire escape. I'd make up answers when I didn't know, but I promised myself he'd have the education I never did. I skipped meals so he could have school supplies. I wore the same threadbare coat for years so he could join the soccer team. When he got into the gifted program at the local public school, I cried tears of joy. And when he earned a scholarship to the University of Illinois, I felt like all my sacrifices had paid off. He was going to be somebody, an engineer, he said, building bridges and skyscrapers. But life has a way of twisting paths you thought were straight. During his junior year, Carlos met Leila at a campus event. She was beautiful, with long dark hair and a confidence that came from growing up in privilege. Leila's family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the Midwest, and her mother, Mrs. Evelyn Whittaker, was the epitome of high society, always in designer suits, hosting galas for charities that sounded more like excuses for the elite to pat themselves on the back. At first, I was thrilled. Carlos brought Leila home for dinner, and she complimented my homemade enchiladas. "This is authentic," she said with a smile. I beamed, thinking maybe this was the start of something wonderful. As their relationship deepened, though, cracks began to show. Mrs. Whittaker invited us to her estate in the suburbs for a holiday dinner. The house was a mansion, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, servants gliding around like ghosts. I arrived in my best dress, a simple floral one I'd bought on sale, carrying a tray of tamales I'd spent hours making. Mrs. Whittaker greeted me with a polite but cold smile. "How quaint," she said, eyeing the tamales as if they were an exotic artifact. Throughout the evening, she peppered me with questions. "What do you do for a living, Maria?" When I told her I cleaned houses, she nodded sympathetically. "How noble. Not everyone can afford the luxury of choice." Carlos laughed it off later, saying his future mother-in-law was just old-fashioned. But I saw the way he shifted uncomfortably when she suggested he might want to upgrade his wardrobe for family events. Leila was kind, but influenced by her mother. Slowly, Carlos started pulling away. Calls home became shorter, visits rarer. He began dressing in the expensive clothes Mrs. Whittaker gifted him, and he spoke of networking and opportunities in her world. The breaking point came at Carlos's graduation ceremony. It was a sunny May day at the university amphitheater, packed with proud families. I'd saved for months to buy a new outfit, a modest navy pantsuit, and I sat in the audience, my heart swelling as his name was called. "Carlos Gonzalez, summa cum laude," the crowd cheered. After the speeches, there was a reception in the grand hall. I made my way through the throng, spotting Carlos with Leila and Mrs. Whittaker. He looked sharp in his cap and gown, but his eyes widened in embarrassment when he saw me approaching. "Mama," he said, his voice strained. I hugged him tightly, whispering how proud I was. But then Mrs. Whittaker stepped forward, her lips curled in a smirk. "Ah, Maria, you made it. How dedicated." Her tone dripped with condescension. She turned to a group of her socialite friends nearby. "This is Carlos's birth mother. She works as a maid, so inspiring, rising from such humble beginnings." The words landed like slaps. Carlos didn't defend me. Instead, he pulled me aside. "Mama, please, you're embarrassing me. The way you dress, the way you talk, it's not fitting here. Mrs. Whittaker is offering me a job at her company. I can't have you like this." His eyes avoided mine, but the knife twisted deep. "Just go home. I'll call you later." I stood there, frozen, as tears blurred my vision. The hall spun around me, laughter, clinking glasses, congratulations echoing like mockery. I left without a word, hailing a bus back to my apartment. That night, I sobbed into my pillow, replaying his words. Embarrassing. Not fitting. After everything I'd given, my youth, my dreams, my everything, he saw me as a stain on his new polished life. The months that followed were a blur of pain. I lost weight, barely slept. Friends urged me to confront him, but I couldn't. Instead, I withdrew. Carlos called a few times, awkward apologies laced with excuses about being busy with wedding plans. Yes, he and Leela were engaged now. The announcement splashed across social media with photos from a lavish party I wasn't invited to. Mrs. Whittaker's doing, no doubt. But in that darkness, a spark ignited. One evening, staring at my reflection in the mirror, hollow eyes, graying hair, I realized I couldn't keep living for him. I had to live for me. I enrolled in night classes at the community college, studying to become a community organizer. I'd always been good at helping people in the neighborhood, translating documents, organizing food drives. Why not make it official? I started volunteering at a local shelter for immigrant families, where I met women like me. Strong, scarred, but resilient. I transformed my apartment too. I painted the walls a warm terracotta, filled the space with potted herbs and succulents that thrived under my care. I joined a book club with other single moms, laughing over coffee about our shared battles. For the first time in years, I bought myself a new coat, not because I needed it, but because I deserved it. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but it evolved. I learned to forgive myself for giving too much, for forgetting my own worth. 2 years passed since that graduation day. Carlos and I spoke sporadically, holiday texts, brief calls. He never fully apologized. But I sensed regret in his voice. Meanwhile, rumors trickled in through mutual acquaintances. Mrs. Whittaker's empire was crumbling. A scandal erupted, embezzlement charges from within her company, whispers of bribery to secure contracts. Her friends deserted her, her foundation collapsed under lawsuits. Leela's father divorced her, taking half the assets. Mrs. Whittaker ended up in a high-end rehab facility after a public breakdown at a charity event, ranting about betrayal. I didn't rejoice. Instead, I felt a quiet vindication. Justice, I realized, isn't always a courtroom drama. Sometimes it's the slow unraveling of one's own web of deceit. Mrs. Whittaker's arrogance, her need to control, her conditional love, it all caught up to her. She sat in her gilded cage alone, while I bloomed in my modest garden. Then, one rainy afternoon, Leela showed up at my door unannounced. She looked different, less polished, more human in jeans and a simple sweater, holding an umbrella. "Maria, can we talk?" she asked, her eyes earnest. I invited her in, brewing chamomile tea. "I want you to come to our wedding," she said, sliding an invitation across the table. "It's small, just family and close friends. No extravagance this time after everything with Mom." Her voice trailed off. I was stunned. Why me, after what happened? Leela sighed. "I've always respected you, Maria. Carlos told me stories, how you crossed the border alone, worked endlessly so he could dream big. I saw your strength even when he didn't. And I never agreed with Mom's cruelty at graduation. I told Carlos it was wrong, but he was blinded by her promises. I'm sorry for my part in it." We talked for hours. She shared how the scandal had humbled her family, how she'd started her own nonprofit for underprivileged kids, inspired by stories like mine. As she left, we hugged, a genuine embrace that bridged worlds I thought were irreconcilable. The wedding was in a quaint park along the lake, under blooming cherry trees. I wore a vibrant red dress I'd sewn myself, accented with a necklace from my abuela. Carlos spotted me arriving and strode over, pulling me into a hug that lingered. "Mama, thank you for coming," he whispered. "There's something I need to show you." He led me to a table near the ceremony site, where a collage of photos stood. In the center, a faded picture of us from his childhood, me kneeling in our old apartment, helping him build a model bridge, both of us grinning. Below it, a note. "To Maria, my foundation. You built me stronger than any skyscraper. With eternal gratitude, your son, Carlos." Tears welled up, but they were cleansing, not cutting. "I was wrong, Mama," he said, his voice breaking. "I let her poison me, but losing you, it woke me up. You've always loved me without strings. I want to honor that." The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. As they exchanged vows, Carlos turned to the small crowd. "Leela, I promise to love you like my mother loved me, fiercely, unconditionally, through every storm. She taught me that real strength isn't in wealth or status. It's in the quiet sacrifices that build unbreakable bonds." Applause rippled through the air. I wept, but with joy. Later at the reception, a picnic-style affair with food from local vendors, Leela's grandmother, a tiny woman with silver hair and a warm smile, sat beside me. "You're Carlos's mama, she asked in accented English. I nodded. "I was like you once. Widowed young, raised 4 kids selling flowers on the streets of Bogotá. They were ashamed, the dirt under my nails, the humble clothes. But years later, they came back, knees bent in apology." "Did you forgive them?" I asked. "Always," she replied, patting my hand. "Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the ultimate power. It frees you." That night, back in my apartment, I journaled it all, the ache, the growth, the redemption. My story isn't unique. It's echoed in countless women who pour their souls into others only to be overlooked. But we endure. We rise. Today, Carlos and I meet regularly, not out of duty, but choice. We share meals, stories, laughter. Leela and I have bonded too, collaborating on community projects. Mrs. Whittaker? She recovered, but transformed. Stripped of her facade, she volunteered at shelters, learning humility the hard way. I bear her no ill will. She was trapped in her own illusions. If I'd known the pain ahead, would I sacrifice again? Yes, but wiser. I'd love Carlos fiercely, but myself too. Being a mother doesn't mean erasure. It means modeling wholeness. Today, 4 years on, I stand tall, Maria Gonzalez, community organizer, mother, survivor. My pain forged wisdom. Love yourself first, for that's the root from which all else grows. If my tale resonates, know you're not alone. Turn your scars into stars. Keep shining.